Hey guys, I am taking time to do a quick Gorf repair. I got this with a set of boards, of course, from a customer, and I don't have a good setup for Gorf because Gorf is kind of funny. It's got the sound amp and the RGB board, what I do have is I have a Gorf cocktail table. So what I'm doing is I'm just kind of trial and error testing to find out what's going on with this board, because I got a good set of boards, so I can swap boards and find out what's bad, kind of narrow it down. Right now I just don't have a good setup for Gorf. But what I did find out is I put my good boards in the customer's cage, and I had to they were finicky. I had to fidget with them to get the game to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recondition this cage. So I'm going to take this board out of the bottom. I'm going to check the solder joints on the bottom, reflow. I'm going to clean the contacts, clean it up. So let's get to that. And then I'm going to go about finding out what boards of his are actually bad. Okay guys, what I'm actually doing here is I'm taking my desoldering gun there and I'm going row by row and removing the solder from these guys, and then I'm going down and hitting the row with new solder, and I'm going to continue and do the rest of these. Alright guys, as you can see, nice and newly soldered. I'm going to wash it with alcohol, get all the flux off of it. But yep, you have to use the desoldering gun, because you won't get it to look this good and it won't stick this good if you don't remove the old solder first. So it's tedious, yes, but all of this kind of work is tedious, so you got to have patience. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll be ready to put it back in the cage and see what we got. Alrighty, excuse the glare. It might be hard to see out here, but this is the Gorf cocktail table, and I have put my known working set of boards in the cage that I just reworked. So now I'm going to go ahead, and I got it plugged in. I'll just close the door and it'll turn on. This is just testing that cage now. And before, I had to sit there and mess with it to try to get it to work. And you can see now it comes up perfect. So excellent. Now this board set does not have a speech chip, so I won't get speech, but I will put in a quarter and okay, I'm missing my guy. That's not cool. Okay, something definitely isn't right, so let's unplug this thing and see what's going on. Okay, now I just swapped the same exact board set, put it into a different cage, There's the cage that I reworked right there. So I went ahead and put it in here, and we're going to see what we get. Same thing. So this looks like a problem with the board set itself. Okay, so apparently it's not the cage, it's the boards. So that's a problem that I'm not going to worry about right now. I'm worrying about this other board set. So the cage, I believe, is good. So I'm going to move on. I'm going to start testing the customer's boards in the other cage. Okay, after doing some board swapping and figuring, and thankfully I had other boards here to do this with, otherwise this would be a lot harder, being that I don't have any kind of a setup here for Gorf. But I determined that the ROM board was not working, the CPU board was not working, and it would reset when I had this game board in it. It would get to a certain point in the attract and then reset over and over. So I'm figuring I'm just going to replace these two sockets under these guys. This one I'm going to make sure that the Z80 is good. I'm kind of thinking the Z80 is probably no good. But either it's going to be the Z80 socket. I might replace these two sockets as well. And this is a mess, this board right here. I've already pulled the sockets up. I'm going to replace the sockets. And these ROMs are garbage. I think there was 2 of them that had broken legs on them. Before I took them out, the legs were already broken. So I'm going to have to burn some ROMs. And I'll probably verify those. The way that you verify those is you put them as a 2532, but you got to float pin 20. And then you can read them in a reader. So I'll verify that they're good that way. And that's about it. I might save myself some time and like plug in a Donkey Kong board and test these 2114s. Just test them, make sure they're good or not. So yeah, kind of get this thing going. Nothing too technical here really. It's just board swapping and maintenance on the ROM sockets and the ROMs. I'm going to clean those legs up and really try to clean those up, read them, make sure they're good, make sure the Z80 is good, replace the socket, replace these 2 sockets, and then see what we get, see if this thing will work. So that's the plan of attack for this. I verified the other boards are good. No, I take that back. One of the RAM cards has one bad RAM because it's just got lines through the screen. So one of them has one RAM that's no good. So I'm going to, I think I'm going to burn a test ROM. I think you can get a test ROM for this that will tell you which RAMs are bad. I'm going to look into that anyway. So yeah, but you can clearly see the screen. It doesn't. It's just lines, vertical lines going through the screen. That's all it is. So, alrighty, that'll be the plan of attack. Okay, well, I just removed the Z80. And it had a broken leg on it. So I would say this is why the CPU board doesn't work. Yeah, so I'll replace the socket, put a new Z80 in it, and hopefully that'll be all that's wrong with that. Okay, I got my Atari football board out, and I pulled the 8 2114 RAM chips off of the ROM PCB, and I just plugged them in 2 at a time right here, because I knew I had good sockets here, so it's a good way to test the 2114s. And it turned out there was one bad RAM on that Gorf ROM PCB. So that was another thing that would keep it from running. So it did have one bad RAM. So I'll put a good RAM in it and replace all those sockets and fix up the ROMs, and that board should be good to go. Okay, I am right now programming a whole new set of Gorf ROMs. These things all crumbled. Just garbage. And there were 2 that the legs actually stayed on, and I lifted the pin right there to read them, and the code's not even right on these ROMs. So neither one of these verified to actually be Gorf ROMs. So, doing a whole new ROM set. I've got 4 of them done. I'll do the other 4, and we'll be back closer to being in business. Okay, I got the old sockets out. Got all the holes cleared. I got my new sockets right here ready to go. I got 8 new ROMs programmed. So we're going to solder those sockets into the board, put the ROMs in it, and this should be good to go. I got the RAM back in it with the one replaced. Had one bad RAM. So let's do that. Okay, really quick. I do now have the sockets in the board. Went very well. So that's good to go. And next I'll put the ROMs in it. You gotta lift pin 20 and then put a jumper over to 5-volt pin on every one of them. So I'll go ahead and do that. Okay, ROMs are done. And instead of soldering these wires over to pin 24, I just ran from the capacitor on the positive side to the pins. And that'll put 5 volts on that pin. Alrighty, let's go try this thing out. Okay, I put the ROM PCB in the cage with the other good boards. And this is what it's doing. And I think I know why. I burnt Gorf MAME ROMs, and this board originally had program 1 ROMs, and the ROM board itself is formatted different, and I don't know if it accesses the ROMs differently or whatever, but I think I'm going to have to re-burn the ROMs and burn the program 1 ROM files. This is actually good though. I mean, it's doing something. It's resetting. So I'm going to pull those ROMs, I'm going to erase them, and then reburn them with program 1. Okay, I have erased the EEPROM files. I have erased the EEPROM files and reprogrammed them with the program 1 ROM files. So we're going to go throw this in the tabletop and see what happens. Okay, this is the game PCB, the one that has the the connectors for the harness. What I did is I replaced these 2 sockets. And you can see here, I replaced those 2 sockets because I made a note that this PCB was resetting. When I used this PCB with another known good working set, the game would reset. So I replaced those 2. That fixed that problem. And this board right here, remember the CPU socket, the CPU itself, legs broke right off of it. It was junk. So I put a good CPU in it and I replaced the socket there. So that's a new socket for the CPU. Really, I should replace these 2 sockets as well. You know, I have found that Gorf is like any typical Midway game. These sockets cause all kind of problems. So, yep, that's it. And after replacing that stuff, thing works great. Okay, this is what I did was I replaced the CPU socket and I put a good CPU in it. I replaced the 2 40-pin sockets with the custom chips on it. I believe it's it's the game board, the one that the harness plugs into. It's got 2 40-pin sockets with custom chips on it. I replaced those 2 sockets. And this is actually the ROM board that came from the customer in this set. But I put ROMs from another ROM board on that board. I'm going to have to figure burning some ROMs for it. But it's working great.
You cannot escape the Gorfian robots. Prepare yourself for annihilation, Space Cadet.
It's hard to play with one hand.
Defender you are, Space Cadet. Got you, Space Cadet. I am the Gorfian Empire. Too bad, Space Cadet. All hail the Supreme Gorfian Empire.
Cool. Yep. All that's missing is I do have to replace the ROMs, because these ROMs do not belong to this board set, so I'll have to figure that one out. But the board set itself, minus the ROMs, is perfect now. tell you, those sockets are a big deal. Those 40 pin sockets, it's just solid now, which is great. Alrighty. Well, thanks for watching. Gorf.